Hey, Blue Rockers, Connie Willis here. Welcome to Blue Rock Talk with Connie Willis. Tonight, Crypto Connie. Yep, we're talking a little crypto. As promised throughout the day today and last night, we've got Stan Larimer with us tonight, and he is the godfather of BitShares. Before we bring on Stan, just want to remind you that if you wanted to see last night's show, it is up and archived for you on Blue Rock Talk. It was with the Cloudcoin founder, Sean Worthington. You can only get his Cloudcoin kit for one more week because they're not going to allow you to buy what they call cryptocurrency with charge cards anymore. So even though his isn't really crypto, I guess he falls under that. He'll have more ideas on how to get that in the future, but just so you'll know, you have another week left, and you can find all that in the description box below. More to come when it comes to Coast to Coast. I'll be on March 3rd as well as March 24th. That's going to be fun. I might even be on in some different cities. Shh, that's coming up. I'll tell you about that in the future. And also, let's see. What else do we got going on? I guess there's some things I can't tell you about yet, but I will, I promise. When that happens, it'll be a lot of fun. And a Bigfoot Friday this Friday, probably, that's one of the things I'm working on, and if I can make it happen, it's part of the surprise. All right, so I think I've caught you up on everything. Even tonight's show, all the links are down below. We'll be talking about BitShares, Arise Bank, and we'll be taking your questions, okay? So remember that those of you that are writing me and asking about how to get into the BitShares wallet and learning more about how to make exchanges on the exchange, I have 2 links below that will tell you how to get to the BitShare geeks, because I can't tell you either. I have to go to them as well. So those links are down below. And, I asked Stan and he gives me that link. I got the connection, but even he gives me that link. So I just want you guys to know that's the way it is. Okay. So in the meantime, there's our guy, Stan Larimer. And I would like to, and let me invite you in here, Stan. There we go. Hey, welcome, Stan Larimer, the godfather of BitShares.
Hi, Connie.
Yay. Hey there. How are you doing?
Doing great. Just got back from Las Vegas, where I did 2 pretty intense days from breakfast to midnight each day, meeting after meeting after meeting. So it was intense, and I got to rest the whole way home today.
Well, I'm looking forward to finding out about everything that happened. But before that, can you tell everybody that may be new here to Blue Rock Talk and to Crypto Connie, can you tell them more about you?
Well, I'm a retired engineer, rocket scientist. Spent a career in the aerospace industry doing air, land, sea, and ground vehicles. And there's things like Mars rover and so on. About 1913, probably 2013, I came into the crypto industry to work with my son Dan Larimer, help him out with his company while he was inventing BitShares. And he went on and invented Steemit, and I stayed behind in BitShares. And my job today is just to sort of look after it, make sure people know about it, and mostly bring enterprise-level companies to using BitShares as a platform.
Well, I'm happy that tonight you can be with us and you can answer some questions for us. I'm just working my little screen here a little bit. This is my new little platform. It's been working out pretty well. I like it a lot. I got my little hand signal up, and I've got the BitShares emblem up there for you, and now I'm going to put our little name up here too. I just love this. I'm working with all this new little technology and making you look good and hopefully making the entire show look good. So let me get our names up here, and then we'll be good to go. Crypto Connie and Stan Larimer. All righty, good. I love this. This is fun. All right. Okay. So one of the things I wanted to ask you before we got started was, the very first thing was, and I don't even, no, we're going to go with this one first. Let's keep it light. Let's have a good time right now. Before we start taking questions, I want to thank everybody that's already here into the show, because we are going to take your questions. Tell me about Las Vegas. What did you do? Who did you see? And I know that you can go ahead and tell us what was going on. You're always so secretive about things, but now you can tell this one.
Well, yeah, I can tell you a little bit about it. We did sign a deal. I'm very excited about it. We'll be giving more information out over time, but the interesting thing is there's something called over in China the New Silk Road. And it's an initiative there to basically follow the route of the old Silk Road back from the Marco Polo days. Genghis Khan built that road and defended it. It ran the whole way across Asia and into Europe to Rome. And that's what a lot of trade came across. You had to pay a toll for protection, but then you could get the whole way across the continent of Asia with trade. And so the leadership of China has decided back in, interestingly enough, the same year as BitShares was created, 2013. I'm not sure if that's significant or not, but I'm going to claim it is.
Yeah.
So the New Silk Road over there, called One Belt, One Road is their name for the initiative, is something that is going to stimulate all of Asia and Europe and increase its interconnectivity. Well, along that Silk Road are a series of museums, and those museums, called the Silk Road Museums, have been built by a very impressive lady that's well known in China and well connected at the highest levels of government. And she is in the process of expanding to put a beachhead over here in the United States at the second most popular Chinese tourist attraction after Hollywood, which is specifically Las Vegas. So apparently 3 million people visit Las Vegas every year from China. And so she's looking at that to be the site of her new Silk Road Museum, which will be a little bit more elaborate because it's going to be more like an amusement park. So I'm not sure exactly how it looks. I got a little peek at the drawing of it, and it looks like, to me, it was designed by Disney, and it'd be equivalent to like a Disney World theme park kind of museum. So you can travel down the Silk Road and stop at all the interesting places, or replicas of them, if you will, of what it was like along the Silk Road and the different places it's visited. And you say to me, Connie, why, Stan, would GodFather of BitShares care anything about an old road through Asia that's suddenly got a new footprint?
That was exactly my question.
Well, what if we called that the new financial beltway of the planet?
Of the planet? Of the big blue rock?
What says, maybe we ought to put blue rock in there somewhere.
That's right. Yes.
Yeah. The whole idea, of course, of the Chinese leadership was to create an economic boom over there, building connectivity in every way. So if you look at that, you'll see a superhighway going across Asia. You'll see connectivity wrapping around the southern part of Asia in the form of shipping lanes. And you'll see railways and power lines and natural gas lines and basically an economic superhighway. And the one thing missing from that, of course, would be the world's fastest blockchain, with digital currencies surging back and forth along that superhighway. And while it's surging back and forth there, it might as well circle the world, especially since she's got a landing zone over in Las Vegas that she's planning. Okay, so she's got numerous licenses that China has that allows her to transfer economic resources back and forth between her museums and so on. Connectivity at each museum in different countries. There's 60 different countries that are involved in this. She doesn't have 60 museums. I think 3 have been built and a couple more planned, one of which is in Las Vegas.
Wow.
So anyhow, we got a deal to supply her with the Silk Road Museum family of coins that will run on the BitShares blockchain and basically be in an excellent position to become the coin of that superhighway.
Wow.
So we're excited about it. Obviously, anybody can use any blockchain out there to talk to anybody in the world. So it's not like it's different, other than a wonderful opportunity to get noticed and connect economic traffic that is, being promoted by the promoters of that whole superhighway, and we're the only ones that can really provide them with that kind of connectivity and handle the beltway load that would imply. So we think it's a wonderful opportunity to build this for her and then let her promote it throughout China.
That's excellent. Excellent. Congratulations.
And, of course, if she promotes it through China and it becomes recognized as part of this global financial beltway, if you will, then, of course, people in the West are going to want to connect there to enjoy that connectivity. And that gives us a chance to tie East and West together. You're to do our little part anyway.
Right. Well, congratulations. It was worth the trip. I know it was difficult for you to get there. I think they delayed your flight. We were talking to you while you were in the airport, and it was delayed. We did a live bit with you, and then I think you had to go home because it was that delayed, and they changed the flight or whatever. And then you had to go home and then go back to the airport like 3 a.m. or something. I'm getting a text from you, hey, just going to the airport. Stan, I'm trying to sleep. It's 3 a.m. What are you thinking? I'm going to remember that.
I had to drive home an hour, sleep for 4 hours, and drive back an hour.
Oh.
And in the process of that, I got a different flight that wasn't available the night before that got me in 4 hours earlier out there. So all is hell that it ends well. But,
no, I think all is hell. It was the right thing to say. That was not a Freudian slip. But
I didn't.
It all turned out well, though. I mean, that's great. Now, did you actually sign, or you just verbally committed and did the handshake thing, or what?
No, it was great. We all worked real hard at it. The first day was a get-to-know-you kind of thing, talking about the possibilities, how should it work. And it looks like it's going to be based on our Quint, which is the big Utah system. So
wow.
That technology will go into this coin as well. So, and Quint is really well done thing that's regulatory compliant out the wazoo. So, it's the kind of thing that actually can be picked up and adopted. And we'll be talking more about that as we figure out all the details. But there were many possibilities of what that coin could be and what could be used to back it. Deciding to back it with the Quint was like a big aha moment.
Yes.
And after that, it was like slam dunk.
Slam dunk with the snaps. That's awesome. The Quint. That's Stan. That's incredible. This is all great news. Wow.
And it took us all day, the second day, Tuesday, to figure it out. And then we all broke around 4:00, and her representative went off and basically wrote. He carries his own printer and scanner with him, and so he was off there typing it all up, and then it's a little one. And he printed out a document to sign. But while we were doing that and marking it up and so on like that, it was time for me to run off for one more meeting that I can't tell you about. But that took me through the evening. I didn't get back and done with that negotiation until after 11:00. And of course, I had to get up the next morning at 3:00 in the morning again to get out to the airport and get ready to go back. So I only had 4 hours to sleep, so I'd already crawled into bed and was half unconscious when a knock came on my hotel door, and that contingent was standing outside with all the documents done and said, "Can we sign it before you leave? Or we can sign it for real instead of that and take pictures of the signing ceremony and stuff." And I said, "Well, you're going to have to let me get dressed, but I'll be out in a minute." And so in my bare feet, I actually signed this document.
Wow. Well, Blue Rocker, congrats to you, man. Stan, that's incredible news. Blue Rockers, just so you'll know, he told me he had news. He could have told it to me before we went on the air, and I said, no, save it for on the air so it'll all be genuine and hear it all for the first time. So that's why I'm just hearing it. So this is Stan Larimer, the godfather of BitShares, and it's live Q&A tonight, so you guys can ask me any questions. But this was some of his, bombshell news. This is great. I mean, that's really good. And if you don't know what the Quint is a gold-backed currency. And where are we on that, Mr. Barefoot Man? Stan Barefoot Larimer.
Well, it is an operational currency right now. They're finishing up the website, locking down some patents, going to start. If they didn't do it already, they're threatening to do it any day. Sell the first private coins to some private investors. They always want to start that out that way. But after they've done their duty to people that they want to be friends with, and, it's not like they're getting any better deal. I mean, when you're selling a gold-backed coin, getting a discount isn't the kind of thing that you can do like with other kind of cryptos. But we're giving them a chance to get in on the ground floor. Of course, there's no limit to how much gold we can back these with. So unlike a fixed limit with Bitcoin price, every new coin that's minted is backed by an American gold eagle, which is stored in the depository there in Salt Lake City. And so they will start making them and make them available. And I expect those to take over for Tether. Tether has a lot of risks to it, but still there's $1 billion worth of them out there. Well, imagine what happens when you can back it with real gold. And this is important. Unlike Fort Knox, which is never audited, you don't really know if there's any gold there, and it's certainly not deliverable. This gold is deliverable. So at any time you want to cash in your quints for a real American gold eagle, you can take delivery of that. 1,000 quints will get you one gold eagle. And we think that's going to be a real game changer, because nothing builds confidence like knowing that all I have to do is, pop in and say swap, and out comes real gold. So
that's amazing.
And then there's some variants on that that allow you to actually get the gold of all the major gold coins. So there's the panda and the kangaroo and the maple leaf and the cougaran, all those different ones, and the iQuint will be giving you the ability to get your favorite coin, whichever one it is. So a lot of cool stuff happening there. And once we have connected with this Silk Road Museum connectivity, they'll be initially offering that at the museums on their museum websites. So every place there's a museum will be an outlet, if you will, for getting this. And of course, you can always log in from anywhere to the main site in order to do your trading. So it'll be a new kind of exchange that will provide you with a nice kind of on-ramp that people will be able to use. And it's got other things that are going to be announced with it, like the ability to back a debit card directly with it and that sort of thing. So these guys have lots of big plans, and they'll be doing sort of a slow rollout over the next few months. And so, let's see, what else can I tell you about it all?
No, you're good. You're good. It's so funny.
For every bit of information I had for you.
No, that's just a technical thing. Just Blue Rockers, so you'll always be in the know when I want to look at your all's questions over here. I don't want y'all to always see me doing that, so I want to go on a single shot. This is just behind the scenes for Blue Rockers only. So I think, it looks like Stan's going to talk a little bit. I'll put him on a one shot. I'll look at the questions coming up. And then when he stops, I'm like, I'm on a one shot. I got to get back on a two shot. It's going to take about 2 seconds, so it looks like dead air. So I'm going, Stan.
I'm doing my training to try to be brief, because when I do interviews, people say, look, we don't want a wall of talk. We want it to be conversational, so learn to make your statements shorter. And so I just managed to pull a quick, short one right when you didn't want it to be short. So.
Well, let me tell you, from a conversationalist and an interviewer for many, many years, you talk the way you want to. I'll cut in if I need you to stop. We want, as Blue Rockers, we want you to continue to talk, because you don't give fluff. You give reasons. You back things up. You don't give fluff. So those people must be used to, maybe a 3-minute time show or something like that. Where here on Blue Rock, I want you to express yourself so that we know what's going on, and you don't string things along. So you're good here. Don't even listen to that stuff there, okay? Just watch me going, Stan, keep going, I'm over here looking. Exactly. And keep this one in mind.
I shouldn't have done that. Now you're going to cut that particular scene out and put it on.
No, it's live. It's there forever. But I will ask you if you can turn down your sound over there a little bit because I'm echoing from you just a little bit. Enough so you can hear unless you got your earpiece. But so Blue Rockers, this is great. And Steamians and Crypto Buddies, we already have some fantastic news for BitShares. And the Quint, by the way, which you just now learned about too if you haven't, the gold-backed coin. So this is great. So what is the when you went to Vegas, this whole great development, what's that coin going to be called or project?
Well, we talked about several names. I don't know what they'll actually settle on. Probably better for me not to say it and then get people using the name and then they want to change the name. I don't want to preempt them.
Don't do that. Don't do that. Don't even go there. Exactly right. Okay, so that's cool. All right, so before we go to some questions, and everybody out there, Blue Rockers, if you want to ask Stan a question, please put it in capital letters so that I can find it. I want to thank all of you that are here right now. Anything you need to know might be in the description below. How to get BitShares, go to the BitShares wallet. And when you get there and you have questions like I know I did, it was funny, Stan, I had this one lady, she was a lady and a man. There was a couple of them. They were writing me, and they were like, I can't even open this thing. I can't. And they were going off like all these big questions and kind of getting on my case. And then they wrote back a second time and went, oh, I didn't even have it on. Ha, 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 ha. What do I do now? Because it looks like it's on when you very first go to the wallet. It looks almost like you are in because you can go to the exchange without signing in. So some people, I did the same thing. I was like, I can't get on. I see everything happening. And then I went, oh, I'm not signed in. I'm a dork. So I know a lot of you guys do that. So, but once you get in and you're not sure what to do, there's 2 links below, and that will help you. These guys are great about giving you the answers, even if the answers are really long, which, by the way, is going to change in the future. It's not going to be that hard in the future. And speaking of hard, let's ask one more thing before we go into the questions that people are going to have for you. I'm just so happy about what you just said. I'm very happy for you. That's excellent news. I hope somebody got some big wide shots of you signing off with your bare feet so that that could be framed on a wall one day for you and your office.
I assure you they kept my bare feet off camera.
No, that would have been great.
I hope.
We have to reset it up and do that again. So not on such a light note, but what do you know about Arise Bank and how Jared Rice is doing? A lot of people have been wanting to know that from you because they always feel like you give a pretty good answer and what it means as what's going on as well.
Well, I don't have any direct information. I have, stuff that filters to me. I try to follow that because, like I mentioned it, I think of it being sort of like a trial of the century. The big battle between David and Goliath. And my biggest concern has been solved, okay? Goliath was trying to cut off David's ability to defend himself in court by cutting off all his sources of funds, not just the stuff that belonged to the company that they seized, but they also froze all his personal assets and the personal assets of his partners. And even the bank he was buying wanted to help him, and they got that not exactly frozen, but they were told they were not allowed to transfer any funds to Jared's defense. And even his own mother and father were warned that they were not allowed to help him. And, I can't imagine under what kind of legal theory there is that says that your friends and associates can't help you with your defense, or that you can't even spend your own money on your defense. To me, that's cheating. The government already has infinite resources. If they wanted to drag it out and bankrupt you, even if you had $1 million, they could make it take long enough to where you burn through your whole $1 million defending yourself. So the idea of the need to come along and freeze someone's personal resources is just, to me, I don't want a government like that. I hope none of you want a government like that. And that means that kind of abuse of power has to be stopped, and that's what I speak out about. But the neat thing about it was, because I spoke out, I'm not trying to take all the credit for it, but it did happen that same night after I published the article on Steemit that was about the trial of the century. All kinds of help started pouring in through their donations. In particular, one big donor came forward and basically gave them a big old slug of money. I'm not sure exactly how much it was, but enough that they could hire a legal dream team. Okay, so the guys that they wanted to get, wanted to help them, was eager to help them, but, they're in business to make money, and they can't take a job without a retainer. And this retainer was a jaw-dropping big retainer, as you might expect from a company that has beaten the SEC in the past. So, the good news about it, as I understand it, is they now have legal counsel helping them. And that's just an enormous relief to me. I mean, when the time comes, I'm not so much into the, it's not my job to figure out what they did right or what they did wrong or whatever. I see abuse of power and I speak out against that, and let the courts go ahead and figure out what did or didn't happen. I think truth will come out, because most of the things that were in the complaint that I saw them file against it were blatantly, obviously, clearly false stuff scraped off the internet that, the typical trolls throw at you, unverified rumors. Much of the complaints talking about his failure to disclose his past. And, as far as I'm concerned, his past is his past. That has nothing to do with whatever he's accused of doing in the morning. And to say he failed to disclose it when it was being discussed all over the internet and he was answering and explaining the mitigating circumstances for the things he'd experienced, it was all well known. And then the other thing that really shocked me was that he had been giving back refunds to anybody who, after seeing the rumors, whether true or false, if they didn't want to participate, he was refunding people's money. So there was no imminent, urgent threat that would require you to knock down his door to his house and come in with 30 armed SWAT guys and get him out of bed at 6 o'clock in the morning. That kind of behavior is, once again, abuse of power. There's no other way to describe it. Abuse of power, because there was nothing there. Anybody who had done the studying they claimed to have done, reading all his emails and everything, would have known that none of that stuff was true. And yet they threw everything but the kitchen sink at him, terrorized him, and then cut off all his ability to defend himself. So that's the horror story. And a lot of people say, Stan, why are you defending these guys? They're scammers. No, I don't think they're scammers. They may have done things that are amount to the moral equivalent of jaywalking, in terms of there are rules that you have to do about how you disclose things and how you talk about things to the public, and all the fine-grained details, assuming that the SEC had jurisdiction over them. Of course, the SEC didn't start out doing that. It was called the Securities and Exchange Commission, and then in 1946 they had a landmark case where they claimed that somebody that was selling a row of orange trees and managed to tell everybody, hey, you buy a row of orange trees from me, and if you don't want to take care of them, there's this company over here in Hauntings Hills, Florida, that manages properties for people, and they'll take care of them for you. And and it was a pretty big deal, because 7 out of 8 Supreme Court justices sided with the majority opinion, which said that's a security. And suddenly that opened the door for the SEC to meddle in everything. Not just the type of securities you'd think about on Wall Street, but rows of orange trees. And so as time has gone on, their power has grown. And, with great power comes great responsibility, especially in a constitutional republic like we have right now. If you can't be trusted to use your great power with restraint and compassion when you're dealing with the people of the United States, then you shouldn't have that power. It's that simple. And interestingly enough, there are several efforts out there that are going on right now to strip them of that power, or at least some of it. President Trump's got one going to the Supreme Court complaining about their use of in-house judges to convict people. Imagine that. Judge, jury, and executioner. Except in this case, they executed the Arise Bank company. Killed it before it had a fair trial. And then tried to cut off the idea of a fair trial by eliminating a guy's ability to hire a lawyer. that's abuse of power. So this is the thing I'm talking about. I'm not trying to defend what they did or didn't do. I don't know what they did or didn't do. I do know what the SEC did. And that, to me, is lawlessness. So there's my rant.
There you go. It's a good rant. It's a good rant. And I like that you give it so people can be educated on that part, because that is the perspective you're taking. It is a new world. All this stuff is so new. And like even Jared had said, there's a lot of miscommunication because there's things that people don't know yet, and there's brand new things that are involved, and we have to talk about those in order to make it happen, right? Mm. But so I know a lot of that's going on too. But golly, so where is Jared now? So he does have a team to back him up. That is the case.
Yeah, I don't know where he is. Messages trickle away through third parties and come across, into my attention. I hear little rumors and stuff, but I would expect that he's probably, if he's smart, spending time with those smart lawyers, and figuring out what he's going to do when he gets called on the carpet by presumably one of these in-house judges that Donald Trump is suing them over. So he's facing, if that's true in every case, I don't know that for a fact, but if they always use in-house justice or judges, then how is Jared going to get a fair trial?
Right.
In that type of environment.
Well, I turn my heater off there. Man, I just hope things work out well for him. I knew he had a hearing sometime this week, and we were actually going to talk to him on Blue Rock Talk, but he felt as though he wasn't going to talk to anybody at that point. Well, almost did it, but then he thought, nope, I want to wait and see what is going to happen here next. But we did get him on Coast to Coast the Saturday night after it happened, so he got to talk then. And I tell you, I still, a lot of courage he has, I tell you. And I think if anybody can make it work, it's going to be Jared for sure.
Well, I would hope that our community, I know that, there's people out there that, like to be picky about what everybody does and everybody else does, and they feel themselves as part of our own industry's watchdogs. And I think that's great. In fact, that's why I'm saying SEC doesn't need to get too crazy with its flexing its muscles when we've got those watchdogs who are calling to the attention every little thing everybody does. Okay? My objection is when those watchdogs start publishing a PR campaign to spread their theory of what happened. Yeah. That gets bad. And so we'll see what happens, but at this point, we sort of have to let it play out. But here's why I think it's the trial of the century. Perversely, if the SEC should win, this could actually be bring about the curtailing, right? If they do all this dirty tricks and we call attention to what they're doing, shine the bright spotlight on that kind of behavior, it could lead to real reform, okay, where there are safeguards put in place. One of my big concerns is when you let a self-regulating body, and that's what that is. It started out as the securities industry said, let us regulate ourselves. And the government gave them that power. And that's good, but over time, the revolving door has that particular organization staffed with people that are familiar with the current financial system and vested in it. And so when they come out and say, oh, let's go regulate the orange tree growing industry, that's not necessarily, maybe that's neutral. They don't care one way or the other. But when they take it to where they say, let's go regulate this young upstart digital currency industry, and let's make sure they don't get ahead of us, okay? That's the kind of thing that could really have a chilling effect to let a competitor industry regulate upstart industry that constitutes a threat for it. And, that's why I think there needs to be, it's just like Thomas Jefferson argued with Alexander Hamilton. He wanted to see power decentralized, okay, so there wasn't too much power in one hand. And this is a classic example. As you start having a new industry out there, it ought to be able to regulate itself and not have the old guard trying to block its entry into the industry by ruthlessly suppressing it, like we just saw here.
If you're just now joining us, it's Blue Rock Talk with Connie Willis, and this is Crypto Connie. Tonight we have the godfather of BitShares with us, Dan Larimer. He's given his perspective on what happened with Arise Bank and what is happening with Arise Bank and the levels underneath it. You know, that's just kind of the tip of the iceberg of that. Also talking about the good news of BitShares and what's to come there from his trip from Vegas. And believe me, he's got many more trips to go with many other different companies to talk with, and really excited to hear about that. Now, a lot of you have come so that you can talk to Stan and ask him some questions. So, Stan, are you ready?
Come at me.
All right, let's do this. Okay, so at the very beginning, this was just one of those quickie ones that I think everybody's probably asking this one, and these are the people that are really into the Bitcoin, of course, which is the first thing that everyone pretty much thinks of when they think of cryptocurrency. It's what they think of, right? And Arlo Zarlo says, hey, do we hang up our Bitcoin and wait for it to go back up? Do we just hang on to it?
I expect it to go back up, but I can't predict that for sure. Bitcoin got big in last fall and drew a lot of new attention. And so one of the things that's happening right now is some big guys with a lot of money are entering the industry, and they're throwing their weight around. And I can't predict which way they will zig or zag, but they are able to, just by splashing around in the bathtub, make big waves for all us little rubber duckies that are sitting in there bobbing up and down, right? So if you're out there with your little supply of rubber ducky bitcoins and there's a big old whale splashing around, you might find yourself going for a bit of a ride. So I would be cautious and don't put more than you can afford to lose in there. I do believe Bitcoin is got some really wonderful grandfathering in, if you will. For example, even though I abhor this idea, the SEC of Canada, in its infinite wisdom, said, well, we're going to declare everything but Bitcoin as a security. But Bitcoin's not a security. Now, anybody that knows the history of Bitcoin knows that the first 100 altcoins that came out there were nothing but copies of the Bitcoin software with a different name on them. Maybe a couple little tweaks or something, but basically they were Bitcoin. And I'd say, probably half the industry is pretty close to being just a Bitcoin. Okay, and then wrapped around that are some things that are just a Bitcoin with a slightly different implementation underneath it. Okay, there's probably only 20 or so what we might call Bitcoin 2.0 companies that do more advanced things like Ethereum, BitShares, Next, a number of ones that implement, EOS, of course, that implement more complicated things where you might want to go look at them and evaluate if they're different from Bitcoin. But the vast majority of currencies are just like Bitcoin, and if Bitcoin's not a security, why is it fair to make everybody else knuckle under except Bitcoin? So now I complain about it, but nevertheless, if you're a Bitcoin lover, that's one advantage. Bitcoin might get treated a little bit differently because it's so big, and the regulators are willing to squish little communities, but big communities, you're not so sure they want to try to squish Bitcoin. So.
Right. Well, I know some people that they are so concerned with what's going on with Bitcoin, and they only know, they haven't learned anything about the coins. They haven't learned what the blockchain is, anything like that. And of course, if you're a blue rocker, that's what we've been working on, is learning what this is. So knowing that it's not about the coin, it's about the blockchain. And if it is about the coin, it's what is behind the coin, right? That's what really matters. And so when people see these headlines on the news about Bitcoin's gone down and everything's gone down, they just say, well, there you go. That's it. It was a scam through and through. That's what people think immediately, and then they don't want anything to do with the crypto world. And there's so much of a future of it that it will, this is just me, The future is big, it is bright, and it is going to change the world. And these people are going to be swept into it because there's no, that's just the way it's going to be. Right? Am I wrong?
No, you're exactly right. But what we see right now, of course, is the old industry has every incentive to suppress it, make it difficult and hard to use, so they can point to it and say, see, it's failing. They're the ones that are taking big boulders and throwing it into the bathtub with the rubber duckies to make giant tidal waves on us, okay? And there's sometimes where they do announcements that cause panic, like we're going to do this to the exchanges. We're going to shut them down. Well, the next day we find out, no, we're not going to shut them down. But you might! And, yeah. So those kind of things also cause waves. And so, we just sort of have to hang on and get through all this. I will point out there is hope. South Korea just recently outlawed digital currencies, and then they got hit with such a wave of protest petitions and stuff that they reversed themselves and embraced digital currencies over there.
Excellent.
Okay, so it is possible, just like in America during the Prohibition period when it was illegal to have alcohol. There was an amendment to the Constitution banning it. My grandmother was a suffragette and a teetotaler, and she was determined to eliminate demon rum from the planet, and got a amendment to the Constitution passed. And during the Prohibition, of course, all kinds of bad effects happened, and they repealed it. So, it is possible to reverse knee-jerk reactions from the authorities, and that's why one of my functions apparently has become the need to speak out on these things and make sure people are aware of their rights and get to participate in how all this industry evolves.
Somebody had asked me earlier about, and I'm not sure if you've seen this or not, and if you haven't, and you can't answer to it, okay, because I can't give you any more info on it, but did you hear anything about Barry Silbert announcing DCG's new digital large cap fund?
Nope, I'm afraid that happened while I was, working breakfast to midnight.
Okay. Does that mean anything to you, or does the name or anything that they're talking about? Okay. All right. Yeah. I thought it was going to be insignificant. If any of you Blue Rockers know something, let me know. I don't know if it's insignificant or not, but it seemed as though it was going to be this big deal. And again, I don't know much about it, so maybe if you guys know.
Anytime something like that happens, like recent putting up announcements that there's futures markets in place, gives powerful tools to people with lots of money, and that gives them additional ways to bat the rubber duckies around in the bathtub. And so that's the main significance to it. It can be good for those tools to be available, but if they're not available to the average rubber ducky, maybe it's not so good. Right. Okay. Well, Agent 19 is asking, can you explain the 365 days of the ICO and how are they available on exchanges already? I wonder which ICO are we talking about? Is that the one for EOS, maybe?
Just says ICO. And it says it like that. I'm not just doing that.
Okay. Well, I'm going to take that as a great compliment. If he's implying EOS and calling it the ICO, then that's good. I don't think Jared's Arise Bank had an ICO that long. I think it was just finishing up, so it couldn't be talking about that.
He is referring to EOS.
Ah, okay.
Thank you, Patrick Konchak. I read a little bit further. Even Patrick said Arise Bank, and then he went, no, referring to EOS. So there you go.
Okay.
Thanks.
Well, I'm not an EOS insider. I can't speak for them. I don't know what their strategies are. Dan Larimer has said that they wanted to have it spread out over a long period of time to guarantee maximum distribution. So that, it wasn't just the people that found out about it early and gobbled them all up. The idea is if spreading it out over that long time, you'd get sort of a dollar cost averaging going on because these would be coming in and people have a lot of time to learn about it. So I think that was one of the factors. I'm not sure if that's the only factor behind it, but I think that's one of the things that they were trying to do.
That's good because I got some. Yay! I'm so
All right.
happy. Yay! Yay! You think you would have the inside total scoop with the dad of the guy over the EOS, but it's not the way it is because you guys, it's a working relationship, and there's paper signed where he can't say things, correct? And not against his daddy, but, it's just the way it is, right?
I don't know what papers are signed. I just know that he and I have agreed no back channel talk.
Okay.
Whatever is proprietary to them is proprietary to them.
Yes, that's what I meant.
He will abide by that. So we don't talk about what those two companies are going. Now, I do, as a champion of BitShares, talk about a passionate desire to see BitShares upgrade to that technology, and that's for a very simple reason. BitShares doesn't necessarily need to move on to EOS, but if it doesn't, EOS makes it so easy for other people to make exchanges that it'll be very easy for competition to spring up. Right. And so that's, to me, why I believe Microsoft offers Microsoft Office for Mac OS.
Right.
Because if they only did it for Windows, that'd be very short-sighted. Someone would come out and become a competitor for Mac OS, and then that competitor would be sneaking on and competing against Office. But if you can make Office the standard on both platforms, then that doesn't happen. And so that's sort of my strategy. I want to see there be BitShares represented, and all the good stuff that we're working to bring to BitShares. I'd like to see that be something projected into the EOS world, because the EOS world is going to be big and significant, and BitShares, the long and loyal fans and users of that deserve to participate in that as well.
Absolutely, I think that's a great idea. And have you talked to? I know you've just said that. Have you talked to Dan about that? Does he know your thought on that? Has it been spoken? Is there anything you can say about that?
Dan and I communicate by talking in our forums and letting the people in the forums run around to the other forums and say, "Hey, did you know Dan said this and Stan said that?" Okay, so occasionally things comes back by that channel, and where Dan has made comments, little things he's suggested, like BitShares should do this or that, or BitShares should concentrate on what it does best, was one of his quotes. Most of the time when he says something like that, it's kind of cryptic, okay. And people over in the BitShares community are saying, "What did he say?" And then everybody's debating for the next week. Bytemaster said this. What does that mean? So, that's our job to figure that out.
So even right there, Blue Rockers, he kind of took us around in a little whirlwind. We don't know. We still don't know.
I wish I could tell you, but no, I sit there scratching my head just like everybody else, trying to figure out what he meant by that.
Well, I think that's a great idea, and my gosh, Dan started BitShares, right? And he started Steemit, and now he's under the EOS. So I can't imagine that even though he's kind of left his little baby to do EOS, it's not like he left it totally. That's still, you can't just leave your child, right? It's got to be like, here, come up on the little EOS platform. Come on now. So we'll see what happens in the future, right?
It made everybody feel really good. A couple times he's, popped in out of nowhere, like Gandalf the White suddenly reappearing from the dead. And, he shows up and makes a couple comments and creates a lot of buzz and then disappears again. And one time we did have a bug, the one bug we've had that actually shut down BitShares for a few hours, and Dan did come to the rescue and help with that debugging. Oh, so he's always there. He's focused on his, new business, but, always aware of what's going on in the industry. And so if there's a serious thing like that, everybody knows they can count on him.
That's excellent. Must have had a good upbringing.
Yeah, that's it.
All right, let's go back to the questions here. Patrick Konchak. Hey, by the way, Patrick, you still got that winning package from last night on the Cloud Coin. sorry, we did a little contest last night with CloudCoin, gave away some educational kits. So we're going to have to see if we can give away BitShares in the future. I don't know if you can do that or not, but we'll see what we can do. That was fun. We had a good time. So Patrick wants to know how Stan and Blue Rock Talk, how did we meet up? Do you remember? I remember. Do you remember?
We have a mutual friend named Nicole.
Yes.
That said, I guess she told you all kinds of lies about me to get me on the show the first time, so she put us together for the first interview, and the rest is history.
Yeah, there was this guy, Robert Dowd, or Bob, whatever you want to call him. He was, we were talking through Facebook or through LinkedIn. And he was giving me some ideas for people, hey, Connie, what about this person for Coast to Coast or Blue Rock Talk, just kind of doing that. And at one point I said, you know what, I'm looking for somebody in the crypto world. Because they were, a lot of them were definitely like UFO guys and wolf people and different things like that. Definitely great Blue Rock Talk stuff, and Coast to Coast stuff. But I wanted to know somebody in crypto. And I said, not only do I want somebody in crypto, but I want somebody that knows what they're talking about, somebody good, not some creep, not some loser, somebody just trying to make it in the crypto world. I said, I want somebody that's real, that will be able to talk, and they will have, they know what they're talking about, not just somebody just out there promoting, a coin or something. And they said, we got the perfect person. And then that's how I met you, and I absolutely agree. And that's the same with Sean Worthington with CloudCoin. So I appreciate Bob and Nicole doing that, because I feel absolutely wonderful about it, even with the Rise Bank. And so definitely wish Jared the best. And I mean, all of us do. At least on our group, for sure. I know, golly, when people say those bad things, I just want to, but that's part of it, right? When you're doing something well, or that's just what's going to pop up,
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with people criticizing. We need to listen to that criticism.
Sure.
It's just that in cases where you take that criticism and turn it into a vendetta, oof, that's where you cross the line.
Yeah, that's really tough. That is tough. Okay, let's see here. Steve Picky. Hey there, Steve. Where is BitShare on atomic swaps? Will that be a future functionality?
I would say yes, although I don't get into the technical details of how that would be implemented. I have participated in conversations where it's been talked about, and one of the guys that will probably be involved in developing the EOS version of BitShares says, "Yeah, we know exactly how to do that." So I'll wait and see what he comes up with.
So on that last rant that you gave away, Valder Farm said, "Great rant." And I guess, according to Arlo Zarlo, Rumsfeld lost $2.3 trillion, and Congress is trying to figure out how to come up with hundreds of billions to prevent the government from shutting down. What do you think about all of this government shutting down and all the stuff coming out that Trump's throwing out with all the nice little papers he's showing? What do you think about that?
Well, it's two questions. First,
yes, it is.
I'm in favor of the government shutting down.
Okay.
What's wrong with the government shutting down? While it's shut down, they're not making any more arcane regulations. Well, yes, they are, because the government's not the one that's doing it. It's these unelected deep state people who probably don't take vacations for anywhere, and in fact they say, great, the government is shut down, now's our chance to write more regulations. But at least when it is shut down, I feel safer, don't you?
I love it. And the second question?
Okay, remind me, what was the second question?
Well, I thought you remembered it, because I was getting into you turning into almost a Gerald Celente on the other side. I'm like, it's great. I can't wait till we do the dinner in New York with Gerald, like we were talking about. We will do that. It'll happen. It'll be fun. I'll have to have a camera on, folks, Blue Rockers, because it'll be fun watching them both get really crazy about everything. It's like going to be like like the old Saturday Night Live, The old ones. Okay. I don't remember what it was now. Rumsfeld, the shutting down. What about the shutting down? Oh, what about what Trump has been throwing out about the last paper that just came out?
Well, this is part of what I would call the systemic problem, right? It's another example of abuse of power. Okay, if these things are true, that Trump is pointing out that the deep state, in this case the FBI, is abusing its power to try to preempt and eliminate the decision of the American voters, that's really scary. And of course, it's not the only time. We have other examples, the IRS and what it did with the Tea Party, keeping them from having their own nonprofit organizations for an entire presidential term, practically. When these guys get to thinking they're above the law, and I think it's true in a number of other three-letter agencies. They get these certain exemptions of, well, we can't do this to American citizens, but for the sake of defending the country, we'll do it to some people some of the time at our discretion. And then you see safeguards try to be put in place to make them go through like a FISA court to get permission to do this or that. And then you see them lying to the FISA court, misleading the FISA court judge, fabricating evidence in order to get permissions to do things. If you can pull off in broad daylight getting a FISA order to spy on major presidential candidates and do things to try to undermine his election, then what else are you going to do to a little guy like Jared? And so every one of us should be very concerned when they see the people behind the scenes in the deep state so confident that they can get away with abusing their power, that they would be willing to take on a sitting president. Then can you imagine how much at risk the rest of us are day in and day out in our lives? This is as bad, probably worse, because our government's more powerful than the governments of Stalin or Mao. Those governments were famous. I remember in high school, people would say, you should be thankful that you're living in the United States where you've got freedom. People over in these other countries, and they'd throw in the Third Reich as well, there was a time when you didn't dare talk because there was a snitch next door to you that might turn you in, and you'd suddenly disappear in the middle of the night. Well, Jared just disappeared in the middle of the night. Okay? Those are the kind of things that our deep state government is doing, and I don't know, but if I was in President Trump's position, I might be a little concerned about taking them on too. That's an extremely risky thing to do. It's so entrenched, and it's like a cancer that's spread throughout our government. Tendrils everywhere. I don't know how you sort it out, but our government needs chemotherapy really bad right now.
That's a good way to put it. Blue Rock Talk with Connie Willis. That's what you're watching right now and you're tuned into. Thank you for being here. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do. If you haven't hit that like button, please do. I hope you're liking what you're hearing. And please comment below. Actually, right now it's live, so you can only ask questions. And what we're doing is asking Stan Larimer, our guest, questions. He is the godfather of BitShares. One of the more recent questions here is John LaRue. He's asking if you have any projections that you'd like to talk about for BitShares. How do you see it happening in the future and how you see your company going?
Well, that's a hard question to answer because you can get yourself in trouble by making forward-looking statements. Now, I think I'm okay because BitShares is something that is out there. I don't control it. It's not like I would be doing it if I was talking about my own company or something. But you just never know. Those are pretty general rules. So I try to avoid making forward-looking statements or projections. You can look at the past and note that Bitcoin, Ethereum, and BitShares and many other cryptocurrencies have grown spectacularly. And so that's the kind of thing that could happen in the future. But if we get a lot of this chilling kind of abuse, like some of the things I was about to announce after the Jared situation, people says, whoa, wait a minute, we're going back to our lawyers. We need better advice. That chilling effect means that a lot of things that could have been born and could have been growing the economy and creating new prosperity and innovation got put on hold. Maybe permanently, maybe not. But that's why we can't have that monstrous amount of power, whale in the bathtub kind of thing, because it's damaging to our industry. And so I'm trying to get things back on board. It could go either way. We could see another big surge this year, or we could see things flicker and die out under the oppression of an industry that doesn't want to see it happen. And if you think I'm being exaggerating, just talk to the number of people, number of companies who have had their bank accounts closed because the bank found they were using cryptocurrencies in their business. Okay, that's the old industry trying to snuff out the new industry, and that's why you just said earlier about how people are no longer able to use their credit cards to buy cryptocurrency. Why is that? The old industry trying to suppress the new industry. Mm-hmm. Okay, and they've got their self-regulating body engaged in that, and so we're tilting on the very edge, and that's why I say, but once again, coming back to the trial of the century, that kind of overreach held under a spotlight and outraging all the different people in the countries and battling against a crack dream team law firm could produce revolutionary change that could go through all the three-letter agencies. Once American people wake up to the fact that unaccountable bureaucrats, unelected people who have a lot of power and no restraint on how they're going to use it, or no compassion for people that they're using it against, turning that mighty power of the United States government inward against the American people. The American people are the laughing stock of the world right now. When you go try to open up a bank account in some other country, they'll say, no, I'm sorry, we don't take Americans. And you say, what? And I said, no, I'm sorry, your government put too many rules on us. We just decided, no Americans. We want to live in a world where Americans are second-class citizens because our government is so ham-fisted that the rest of the world doesn't want to do business with us. These are the kind of reforms that I guess it's turning out to come to me and people like me to champion those kind of reforms, and that's, I guess, what I'm doing here.
There you go. Well, do you know, how does Trump feel about cryptocurrency?
Well, I was just talking to him last night, we were having a couple beers, and I don't know. Donald Trump surprises me a lot, but, he does seem to be a liberty-minded kind of guy, and a guy who wants to scope government down and drain the swamp. So I'm hopeful, especially when I see the actions he's taking against SEC abuse. It could be a really helpful ally in there. And it's interesting, how they say, everybody's connected to everybody by, what is it, about 5 steps, 5 links?
I think it's 6. Yeah.
6? Okay. I think that people I have talked to know people who know Trump. There, that's a little closer. Yeah. But, I am sure that via that channel he's hearing about this stuff. But I have no idea how he'll react to it. I know he's busy with many things.
Yeah.
So maybe someday you'll see a tweet about deep state stuff. But, of course, he's up to his butt in deep state alligators everywhere. And so...
so no one really knows what he thinks about it?
Not yet.
Okay.
But if I ever find out, I won't tell you.
Oh, come on. I bet he'd be for it. I bet he'd be all for it.
I'm hoping that's true.
I'm betting he would be. Okay, so let's get back to some questions here. Dolphin oatmeal. I don't know. I guess dolphin's kind of kidding a little bit. Sorry. A second ago, something scared me. I saw something to the corner of my eye. Is something hairy coming my way, and it was Little Penny. So.
Hey, now wait a minute. In my contract somewhere it says I get exclusive coverage here. I don't have to share.
No upstaging. No upstaging by Penny. So Dolphin Oatmeal says, may I come visit Stan on his farm? I want to get more involved and have a unique set of skills. Well, that's for sure, right?
Well, we've had that kind of event happen in the past. There was a famous 2014 roadshow where a couple of entrepreneur guys took and actually painted a big BitShares bee on the hood of their car and then filmed it over a 2-week period of visiting people in the BitShares community. And they did a big circle around the Midwest and stopped by here and got their picture taken in front of our solar panels and then headed off to complete the circle back around. And that was very popular. I'd like to see that done again.
I remember you talking about that once before. Hold on here, let me get my right. There we go. I remember you talking about that because that's what I want to do with Blue Rock Talk. So, okay, Charlie Jones. Hi, I love fun. I don't know what that is. Anyway, hey, Stan, have you considered a BitShares worker proposal to hire lobbyists on behalf of crypto since it's so effective for other industries?
I was just talking about that the other day, and I would absolutely support that. The best way to make it happen is have it not be me who suggests it. Okay? Because, one of the things I do is a little bit of, stating my opinion. There's a contingent that doesn't want to do it if I suggest it. So I will just say I would support it and watch and see if somebody does it.
All right. Okay. Good question there. Steve Picky. Oh, wait a minute. Okay. Okay, this might just be a comment here, but Steve Picky says Bitcoin by far is the most stable coin on the market and the most volatile, but the code is sound and it is the benchmark of crypto. Personally, I don't necessarily like it. Do you agree with what he's saying, or?
Yeah, that's pretty good, other than it's not the most stable. The most stable would be probably BitCNY, which is the most heavily used of our market-pegged assets. Tether is pretty stable, but it's not stable under the hood because of the counterparty risk of how it's implemented. But there are currencies that don't fluctuate very much, so if that's what you mean by stable, certainly when you get to be big and have a lot of stuff, it takes more whale power to slosh it around in the bathtub, right? If you've got something that's worth hundreds of billions of dollars, then to manipulate it, you need tens of billions of dollars. But if you've got a little coin, then you can manipulate it with maybe $1 million worth of funds. So in that sense, it's more stable. It's got more inertia. It's clogged, though. It can't grow. I think it'll continue, and every little ounce of bandwidth that it's got will be used, but it'll be expensive and used only sparingly. And people who want to do small transactions will go to other systems because they don't want to pay the $30 to $45 fee to send $2 to buy a snow cone.
Right, yeah. Right. If Bitcoin dies, totally something happens where it's gone, is that going to kill everything else? Because that's where a lot of people think. They think once BitShare is gone, it's all over. Will it ever be gone? And would that be the case if it was?
No, I don't think it'll be gone because there's enough people who passionately believe in it that they'll still do it. The miners will still want to mine and make a profit of it. Now, could it go through a big nuclear winter? Sure. But if for some reason it's, let's just say, got legislated out of existence, would other things step up and take its place? Well, we've seen that happen already. Okay, during the last time Bitcoin ground to a stop, people used Litecoin for a week or so to do their transfers because Bitcoin couldn't handle it. So, yeah, you'd instantly see people move to the next best thing.
Okay, I've got Penny doing her little thing, and now I've got Batman chirping. So the animal farm has opened its gates. Okay, the real foe, I guess the real foe or the real foul. Anyway, welcome to Blue Rock Talk. I'm not sure that I've seen you there before. If BitShares moves to EOS, what will happen to BitShares as a token?
Well, first off, the regular BitShares. Maybe it'll be called BitShares Classic at some point, but it's not going away. So what you'll see is a probably parallel chain there. It certainly could do an upgrade. Certainly if we went from BitShares 1.0 to 2.0, we did something called a pitchfork. We threw out all the old code and in 3 seconds substituted brand new hyper-effective code. Could we do a pitchfork that took us on to EOS? Yes. But it's not necessarily clear that you would have a consensus within the community to do that. So I think it's more likely in this case, given that our community has grown and fragmented into different philosophies somewhat, hard to get everybody to unanimously agree to do something like that. Back when ByteMaster was actively involved and the thing was still in development, it was easy for the developers to say, well, we've talked about it with the community, got your ideas, weighed everything, and decided we're going to upgrade to BitShares 2.0. And now, though, there's no central development team that would be able to make such a decision. I think that BitShares Classic is going to remain in some capacity, and so I would be looking to introduce a BitShares EOS that complemented it with the nice, providing nice bridges between Classic and the rest of the EOS ecosystem, and probably implementing some new features. What those features are, there's a lot of things that could be done differently, and maybe we'll be discussing some of those with the community as we look at how to do that. But I'm really ready to launch that kind of an effort, in conjunction with the existing community, but willing to sponsor, shall we say, a layer in between EOS and BitShares that would be perhaps a new chain, but it would have EOS technology in it and interfaces to the BitShares system in some way that I'll leave for the technical guys to figure out. But I would be interested in sponsoring such a thing.
Wow, that does sound exciting. Wow, I'm glad that the answer led to something like that. That's great. Okay, let's see. Let me get some other questions here. If you're just joining us, this is Blue Rock Talk with Connie Willis. Connie Willis here, Crypto Connie tonight. This is Stan Larimer of BitShares. He's the godfather of BitShares. There you go. And he is definitely a blue rocker as well. So we are live and we're taking your questions here. Thank those of you that are new here, the Crypto Connie people from Facebook, as well as Steamians, DTube, and DLive people. Thank you for being here too. Okay, Michael Lucchis even says, thanks for hosting this. That's very nice. Thank you. I'm glad you guys are enjoying this. We like to do this. It's fun. 1-2 is asking, is your thoughts on Steam the same as Dan?
Absolutely not.
Do you know what his thoughts are?
No, but I'm pretty sure my thoughts are not the same as you think that there is room for a new Steam. I would like to see a new Steam that explicitly addresses the problem of evil whales. There's a few bad apples.
He goes on to making Steemit, right, .com. Then he goes on to EOS. I love all of them. He's like batting 1,000, right? I mean, he's just incredible. So tell us one of his bad kid stories of growing up. No, I'm just kidding. So I wanted to say, I really enjoy Steemit because for people like me, it's not just a coin. It's an application using the currency, and I just love that. And so that's what you're working on, correct? Getting businesses that use the coins and keep that currency going and have a reason behind it, correct?
Yeah, I mean, the thing that makes any digital currency go up is demand. Okay, you've got a fixed supply, but if you don't have increasing demand, you don't have increasing value. And so that makes sense what you just said, and excuse me for interrupting, but I want to know, in saying that, how come Steam and Steam-backed dollars has also gone down with everything else then? I would think that it wouldn't go down because people are still blogging on there and posting and making that, move. So why are those numbers down just like everything else is? If it's working? Because within the little Steam universe, there's nothing to tell you what the price is in dollars, right? The only way to find out what the price is in dollars is to go through the process of trying to sell them for dollars. And when you do that, you always have to go through this step of selling them for Bitcoin, and then you sell the Bitcoin for dollars. So if you've got that little linkage in there, if Bitcoin falls in half, and you're priced in terms of Bitcoin, you fall in half against the dollar through no fault of your own. So one of the things that I'm so excited about, this is my chance to come back to the quint, because I do believe that we do not have to have everything priced in Bitcoin. They can be priced in quint, gold-backed, stable digital currencies. And once that gets to be big enough, there'll be markets out there where people can trade any crypto for quint. And now you've got a stable kind of thing, and you're not going to be fluctuating as much with Bitcoin. There'll be some fluctuation because there'll be some people want to still buy with Bitcoin. But another different coin that is so different that it's not over under Bitcoin's shadow, okay? Because it's a completely different kind of currency. But it's the kind of currency that I think will get so popular that it could actually start stabilizing the prices of all the other currencies.
That is so good to hear on so many levels. But doesn't the fact that everything goes back to Bitcoin, isn't that only because that's the one thing, I guess there's a couple others, that the banks will actually, take and transfer into U.S. dollars for you? I mean, isn't that the reason why?
It's sort of a circular reasoning, right? Not so much the banks, but the people with money transmission licenses that can deal with fiat, for some reason, only accept or want to deal with the very biggest market caps. Okay, so you see this business where most of them will do Bitcoin, Litecoin, which has no merit other than it was an early one that came along and got big before much competition came out. But it's big, so it doesn't matter that it's not anything about it that's that remarkable. And then, of course, you've got Ethereum. It deserves it because it's big and unique, has different things. So why they don't do more of the top 20 currencies or something, we'll have to ask them. But because they do it that way, all the other currencies are forced to sell against the things that allow people to get in with their outside bank money. And I guess one of the things that could happen in the future is if the banks continue with their attempt to squeeze off ways to use cash, fiat currency, to buy digital currency, then these other things that like the quint come along, that will become a more popular way of doing it. So we'll see. Every action has a different reaction, and the more tightly you grip your fist, the more star systems will slip through your grasp, is what I like to say to the banks. So you banks, keep it up. Keep trying to squeeze it out, because all you're doing is causing innovation to pop up all that faster and accelerate the date when we don't need you.
Right. I keep thinking that line is yours, but I think it's been stolen from somewhere else.
Yeah, Carrie Fisher, Princess Leia, said it to one of the commanders of the Battlestar, I think, in Star Wars #1 or 4, I guess it was. Yeah.
All right. And I was just joking with you there.
Oh.
That was a joke. Lighten up, Stan. That was a joke.
If anybody would know that, you would know that. I should have known that.
No, you know what? I like Star Wars a lot. Don't get me wrong, but at one point, I don't know. I didn't go and see some of the other movies at the time. I don't know. At one point, I just stopped seeing movies, and I'm so out of whack with that stuff, and I feel bad about that. I got to catch back up on everything. But you start working, especially in radio and television, and the last thing you get to do is go see a movie because you are so busy all the time, and it is not a 9-to-5 job at all. And the last thing you want to do is go see a movie, because when you do, especially when you worked in the films, I used to work in films too, and I was on the sets. And once you've been on a set and working on a set, when you go see a movie, you're looking at it differently. You're watching the cuts, of course, and then you're watching the scenery, and you're also going, oh, look, craft services right over there behind that really neat staged effect over there. You know what I mean? It's totally different the way you watch a movie. It's hard because you continuously watch it, and then you're the person that has to sit and watch all the 20 minutes of credits at the end, and nobody likes that. Nobody wants to be your buddy at that point. They're like, come on, let's go. Wait a minute, I know these people. So I missed out on a lot. So you're watching Blue Rock Talk with Connie Willis, and we are interviewing and having live Q&A from you guys out there, Blue Rockers, with the godfather of BitShares, and it's Stan Larimer. So let me see what we got over here. Oops, I just lost my little question over here. Here we go. Steve, okay. Steve Pickey. The U.S. dollar is a private instrument of debt owned by the private corporation Federal Reserves. Unfortunately, they get to write the rules where fiat is concerned. I guess that's just a thought and not really a question. But do you have any thoughts to that?
Well, that is a thing well worth thinking about. There's this long history of fighting against central banks. Goes back, to the big dawn of time, probably. Yeah, but certainly when the United States got formed, we had a first central bank, and we managed to snuff it out, and a second Bank of the United States. Andrew Jackson snuffed that out, and then during the Christmas vacation, when Congress was mostly out of town, they snuck in the Federal Reserve Act and the income tax in the same, Christmas Eve massacre, if you will, in 1913, and turned over the control of our country's currency, which the Constitution says should belong to Congress. They gave it to the bankers. And ever since then, the bankers have been, growing and growing in power, and they had the power to print money and give it to their friends first, and then it trickles down to us. By the time it gets to the rest of us, the price of everything's gone up, and we're no better off. But those first guys that printed the money and got to spend it buying up assets are growing wealthier and wealthier. It is not honest money, okay? We live in a world where we don't have honest money. And that's why I like to say, all I want is honest money and a level playing field. And these people, like we're talking about here, are doing their best to create a non-level playing field. And the rest of us have to eat the crumbs while they suck all the oxygen out of the economic vitality of the world. And so we're trying to reverse that process, and of course they don't like that, but that is the mission that we all share in common. So we shouldn't fight among ourselves in the digital currency industry, like so often happens, where one group is saying bad things about the other group as if it's a zero-sum game and they need to kill off the other currency that's like them by throwing mud at the other one. No. It's not a zero-sum game. The pie gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and if we would all concentrate on complimenting each other and telling everybody about the benefits of each other, we would grow the pie, and each of us would grow bigger. But when we fight among ourselves, we become vulnerable to the beast that wants to consume everything in the world.
I agree with you there. That's as you know, too, I talk with Sean Worthington about the cloud coin, and I just love that, too. It's in the cloud. It's not even on the blockchain, and it's cool. It's so great, these other options, as opposed to what we have, and I agree with you 100%. Got some other questions here, and just if you're just getting here, ask your questions, put them in capital letters so that I can see them better on the live chat. YouTube makes them really tiny little thing there. So, Stan, what'd you do? You blinded me there. What's going on? You hiding?
I wanted to take a swig of my Coke, and so I just went dark.
Yeah, no free ads for Coke. I'm doing the LaCroix tonight. No free ads for LaCroix. You never know, though. You never know. So I was like, does he know the secret of doing that number? Because it looked like
I've had you do it to me a couple times.
You do know, okay. Okay, so we'll go until the end of the hour. So get your questions in now, and when you have your questions, please put them into caps for me so that I can get them easier. So we won't keep Stan up all night long, because I know we can ask him questions all night long. So let's We'll keep considering that you need to be in bed by midnight and get your beauty sleep. Okay, no, just kidding. All right. No, I need that. I'm the one that needs that. Okay, Michael Lucci says, I'm new to the space and I'm still learning. And that's excellent. Glad that you're here. That's what we're trying to do, is help newbies like me and you, Michael. I'm lightly invested in both Steem and BitShare. What sets them apart, and how is BitShare a superior coin?
Well, I don't want to pick on our little brother like that.
No, they're family. They're family.
Steem It is its own magnificent thing, but it's specific to a universe. It's not as general, right? It's something that you can earn digital currencies for publishing or critiquing somebody else's work, or liking and boosting it. Curating is what we call it. That's a very useful currency, but it's a specialty currency. And I would say BitShares is a general currency, and therefore has broad applications across the world for everything. And so in that sense, I think utility and generality and versatility are the features that give BitShares the edge, if what you want to be when you grow up is a global currency, right? If what you want to be when you grow up is the next Reddit, and so on, which is what Steem is trying to do, become the social media that everybody uses, then it's going right along on its way to accomplishing that, and it has no ambitions to be the global reserve digital currency.
Right, yeah, and there's so many neat things on it now with Steem that, even just the things that I've picked up, and that's just what I've kind of looked for that relate to me, where there's so many other things that don't, like the D-Tube is on there, which is like the YouTube on Steem It, to where you do that, but you get money from other upvoters. Then D-Live, which I've registered for, but I haven't done it yet, which is a live streaming application on Steem It. Then D-Sound, where you can do music, and you can also read poetry or narrate. How cool is that? I thought it was just music until I tuned into it and checked it out. And I was doing one of my YouTube channel videos, one of my videos on here to say, hey, look what you can do. And I, heard people reading Hebrew and people reading verses from the Bible, and people just reading poetry that they created themselves. I thought that was really cool. And then D-Mania, you make your own memes. It's just all memes. And you put your meme up there. And that's really cool. I hope you saw my last meme that I did. It says, it's got a piece, it's in Antarctica, and it's got this really cool, the tip of the iceberg coming out, tip of an iceberg. So I put BitShares, the tip of something about being the tip of the iceberg, but I didn't say totally that, because that's such an old cliche that everybody uses all the time. Oh, so much that I can just say it right before they say it. I can say that they're going to say it. So anyway, I hope you like it, because it's really cool looking, and I want you to make sure you see that. Okay, because I really like it. I think it was cool. I love blues and whites and the Antarctic look and the iceberg look, so it's really kind of cool. Anyway, thank you for listening to that. Okay. Dolphin Oatmeal. If and when the dollar collapses, how will people who do not already have crypto get into crypto?
Well, when the dollar collapses, it's too late.
We're all gone.
Yeah. I mean, whether you are planning to switch from dollars into gold, silver, or crypto, nobody's going to want to sell it to you once it's generally known the dollar is collapsing, right? So how do you go get it from somebody? It's a little bit like the Weimar Republic, where the paper marks got to be so worthless that people used them literally for kindling to start a fire. Somebody had a wheelbarrow full of them that they parked outside a shop and went into the shop. When they get back out, the marks were still laying there on the pavement. Someone stole the wheelbarrow. Okay, so when you get to that point of view, you want to go to there and say, hey, I got some of this worthless fiat currency. I'd like to trade for your nice, bright, shiny new BitShares. And someone's going to say, no, thank you. I'm going to keep my BitShares or my gold or my silver, whatever. So, I wouldn't wait until the crash has happened. Hopefully we can provide alternatives to that before it happens and get people weaned over onto it, because after it happens, it's probably too late.
Gotcha. Yikes. Do you think it's going to happen?
Yes.
When? You think it's going to happen this year?
Oh, no. I would never be so stupid. I thought it was going to happen in 2008.
Oh, okay.
Okay. And every year since then. So,
Okay.
yeah, it can last longer than you'd expect, but one day you'll wake up and you won't be able to get into your bank. It'll be closed. You'll go to your ATM machine and it'll refuse to give you any money. And you will not really know how you're going to go get any food, and you're going to therefore be very vulnerable when the government introduces their new one world currency. That one world currency will give them total control, and you won't care that it's going to give them total control, because you got to get some of it so you can buy some bread and beer. Okay? So if we ever allow ourselves to get into the situation where someone can turn off the dollar and you don't have an alternative in place, guess what? You're toast. You are now a slave because you have no independence. There was a time back in the early American ages where everybody had their own garden out back and was self-sufficient. And quite frankly, my family, my ancestors, went through the Great Depression and didn't notice any difference. They were dirt poor, and they knew how to scratch out a subsistence living. And the whole rest of the world was collapsing, and they were just doing their thing. So you don't know who's going to rule the world when this is all over? The Amish.
You're right. But they're still going to have little bakeries everywhere, and they're going to use crypto to get it. They can.
I don't know how you're going to get Amish to use crypto, but they won't.
They might go for that. You never know. When they have their bakeries out and their great little restaurants of just good old normal food that they're bringing it to you, you never know. Who knows? Who knows? Times are changing even for the Amish. We'll see what happens. So hopefully not, but. We'll try to get through the questions for you before midnight here. Steve Pickey, why is EOS using Ether Wallet when it's considered the Ethereum killer?
Well, because you can simultaneously be trying to make something better than something and still want to use it for what it's good at. And what Ethereum's good at is the ability to do deep. There's lots of capital inside Ethereum from its rapid growth. So if you go in and do sales on Ethereum, you got lots of easy money that can flow in to buy your coin. Even if your coin is going to be used to produce something so much better that someday it will take the place of Ethereum, you can still use Ethereum to bootstrap your system. And so economically it makes sense to use the best available now to make something better tomorrow.
Okay, answering your questions here, Stan Larimer, the godfather of BitShares. What do you think of Elon Musk sending a car to where did he send the car? Did he send it to Mars?
That's what I heard. I just caught up with that story. Not sure what his reasoning is. I'm sure he had some clever, funny reason. It's just a test, right? And when you're doing things, if you remember back to the early Apollo space program, there was the Mercury project, and the first Mercury launch was Alan Shepard just went up and out into the ocean and splashed down. And it wasn't until John Glenn on the third mission first got into orbit and went around 3 times. So you do things step by step. Well, they need a rocket big enough to get to Mars, but they don't want to put the expensive equipment on board that you would normally carry, the actual command module and housing for astronauts and everything like that, on that first test in case it blows up on the launch pad. So you need some weight in there to take there. And they said, well, what do we want to send up? And somebody got a clever idea of putting that car in there for some reason. And it's counterweight, that they want to show that they can do it. And if you're going to just send counterweight, well, instead of putting buckshot or something in there, why not put in something that makes a statement, like the first car on Mars?
Yeah, well, he probably put in a good car. I'm not sure what the car was. If you guys can tell me what the car was. I was in here working and I heard Nerner going, they're putting the car's up in that thing going off. And I was like, Mom,
No,
you were supposed to tell me when it went off. She didn't
if
tell
I
me when
was
it
him,
launched.
I'd put a Tesla in
That's
the
what
thing, so that he could claim Tesla, the first car on Mars. Why not?
Yeah.
You know,
Well, is that what it was?
I don't know. I mean, I'm just catching up to the story. I
gotcha.
probably don't have all the details right. But if you want me to reverse engineer it,
yes.
thinking like a rocket scientist who owns a car company, it's not exactly rocket science to figure out what he's doing.
Right. That's what I'm thinking too. Yeah, I agree with you there. Okay. Let me know what the car was, you guys. That's the bigger statement of all, for sure. Rico Steam. How will the bad whale problem be solved in a potential EOS Steam?
Well. I would say that there's a number of things you could do. Obviously, you could get rid of the counterproductive flagging mechanism, which is being abused. You could, one of the things you do when you create a new channel is you hand out. You usually do what's something that we call an airdrop, where you take your new coins and you give the same amount of coins in the new system as were in the old system, so everybody gets moved to the new system without any changes. But you could put a limit on how much you could move across, so big whales couldn't move across. The problem with that is that this particular bad whale has made a lot of sock puppets and spread himself out so he can hide in the weeds and you can't necessarily sort him out. But I have a solution for that too, which is a little algorithm that runs along and looks at this simple metric. How many times has this particular account flagged somebody that has lots of positive votes? Okay. So, wow, look at this, and I've seen this many times. Someone's got 100, 200 upvotes, and one big whale vote knocking it clear down to zero. Guess what? That account doesn't move. It loses and doesn't gain anything in the new system. Okay? Very simple metric, right? Because all those other votes from the minnows show that the thing was not spam and a legitimate kind of thing to flag, because everybody else loved it. So you could write a simple little algorithm that would run through there and say, abuse, 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 abuse. And those accounts don't move. They just left behind. So those are a few ideas I have. I don't know what will be done, but, that would be a way you could fix steaming.
Yeah, and don't tell all your secrets. You don't want them to be ahead of your strategies there.
Yeah, but that's right. It's an arms race.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, see, here's the real thing they have to do. Don't be evil, because I can devise an evil detection algorithm. Okay? Evil detection. And I know where you are. You may be down in the weeds with a bunch of little sock puppets, but if they're evil sock puppets, I can detect you. So.
I like that. I'm glad, because I agree. Like that is a major problem on Steam It. Not cool if that happens to you either. Carlos Duarte, hope I said that okay, Carlos. Is BitUSD going to other exchanges to compete with Tether coin?
I think it will. Of course, those are individual decisions of those exchanges, right? But as Tether gets investigated, it's one of a couple things that the SEC is investigating, and here I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth, right? Because I don't like abuse, but I do like regulatory oversight in the sense of when somebody's doing something detrimental to the industry. Let's use due process, minimum force. Let's get to the heart of whether this is a proper thing or not. But if it turns out that it's found to be fraudulent, then why not take it out of the way, in which case people will be looking for other things. Now, will they look for BitUSD or will they look for the Quint? That's an interesting question.
I like that Quint thing. I can't wait. The Quint, the gold-backed crypto coin. I love it. Okay, I love it. Rico Steam, what's your take on the recent Dan and Ned drama on Steam B? Is that with the whale stuff?
The all-knowing GodFather knows nothing about that.
Oh, good.
I haven't encountered it at all. I've been two heads down doing negotiations on this or that or writing articles or so on like that. I generally avoid drama. The only drama really I've noticed is coming to the defense of Arise Bank when it was being brutalized out there. I saw that as unfair and spoke out against it. But most of the time, I'm not attracted to that kind of stuff. I got better things to do than look at other people arguing. So I have no clue. I hadn't heard they had an argument.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know that one either. Yikes. So apparently, yeah, Dan and Ned. And aren't they like co-partners on this team or no?
Well, when we first spun Steam off, Dan and his technical team went and joined forces with Ned. Ned was going to lead the CEO functionality of, managing the growth of the system, and Dan was going to work with his team to build the technology behind it. And so those two went off together and worked together pretty well for the first year. Seemed to have some kind of disagreement about whether Dan's greatest ideas should be open source or kept proprietary. And that led to their split and Dan going off to build EOS separately. So I suppose that caused a little bit of hurt feelings or something there during that separation. But it was, driven by fundamental philosophical differences about whether things should be given to the world or held close. And you got to understand, a CEO's job is to manage his company for the benefit of his shareholders. And so there's an argument to be made for holding it together. But Dan's passion is to give things to the world, like he did with BitShares. And he wasn't going to be deterred from doing that.
All right, thank you. If you're just now watching us, it's Blue Rock Talk with Connie Willis, Crypto Connie tonight with Stan Larimer over here answering your questions. And we're going to wrap it up in about 15 minutes or so. So I'm going to try to hurry up and get the last questions in, okay? Because we got some good ones here. Lindo RM, does BitUSD serve the same function as Tether?
To a first order, yes. The goal of both of them is to provide something that is stable with respect to the dollar. Tether does it by a different mechanism. BitUSD is done by backing it with BitShares that are guaranteed twice as many BitShares as it need to equal the value of a BitUSD. So there's no counterparty risk. Whereas on Tether, basically say, I'll sell you a Tether if you give me $1, but I don't guarantee that I'm going to keep that dollar around for you to cash out in the future. So it could be completely unbacked. And in fact, it kind of says that on their website. We don't promise to back this or promise that it's good for anything. But people out of wishful thinking that it will always be worth $1, let it do that. But one, I think, is a much more robust counterparty risk-free solution, and that's the BitUSD.
Okay, John LaRue, us versus the central banks, can we win?
Well, it's a long, hard slog. I've read the end of the Bible. I know how this turns out. And most people are not going to win against those banks.
Time will tell, right? At least maybe we'll see what happens here. What is Stan's opinion of the SEC meeting yesterday concerning cryptos? Did you get to see any of that?
No, unfortunately, I was tied up in meetings all day, and one of the things I need to catch up, I came rushing straight here to Connie's studio so that I could do this interview instead of what I wanted to do of reading up on all that.
No, wait a minute. You wanted to do this, right? Or did you want to read up on that?
Yeah, I really wanted to be with Connie here. That's obviously. But that's my excuse for not knowing the answer to that question. I was aware it went on. I thought, this is interesting. I got to pay attention to this. But I haven't got to it yet.
Actions show everything. You are here, so you wanted to be here. Yeah, actions show everything. Don't listen to somebody's words. It's all about actions, right? It's all about actions. No care. Elon sent the Tesla Roadster on an elliptical orbit around the Earth, Mars, and the Sun. So, okay, the Tesla Roadster.
Okay.
That's cool.
Yeah.
You got to send a roadster when you're doing a trip like that.
You cannot buy better advertisement than that.
No, that's excellent. That's pretty darn cool. You're right. You can't do any better than that. So Tesla. Okay, send. That's right. Patrick Conshock says, send BTS to Mars. That's right.
What? That was just going through my head just as I was waiting for that question. I was going to make some kind of a wisecrack about, why not send BitShares to the moon or to Mars or whatever.
Or you can send it to the moon. Or you could even send it to Pluto to see if it's really a planet or not. How's that? Because they're still fighting that one, aren't they? Still there?
Why not? But I will tell you what I think will happen. Okay. Well, several ways it could happen, but I believe that we will have low Earth orbit satellites that will be creating a network, if you will, an internet in space, and that one of the things BitShares can do that Bitcoin can't is it can have its nodes on orbit, because those nodes don't take any power. Whereas if you're going to put Bitcoin in orbit, you need to put a coal power plant sitting there on every satellite to power the miners that are inside the nodes. But we can put BitShares nodes in space, and we could probably do it before the end of this decade, as John Kennedy once said.
Bring it on. Let's go. Bring it on. Bring it on. Okay. What about using the same way as Everpedia and airdrop to EOS token holders?
Well, first off, that same way that you're talking about was invented by BitShares. The very first share drop that was done was going from BitShares 1.0 to 2.0. We invented that whole concept.
What is that for people like me that don't know what that is?
Well, what it essentially amounts to is you take a dummy coin. Our first coin was actually called ProtoShares. Okay, we knew it was going to take a year to make BitShares, but we wanted people to have a chance to build a community around a coin. So we said to everybody, look, we're going to have this coin called ProtoShares. You can mine it just like Bitcoin, and when the time comes that our software is done, we'll do an upgrade. And the way you do an upgrade on a blockchain that's running is you basically start another blockchain running and initialize it to the same ownership pattern as the underlying coin like ProtoShares. And so that's basically what we did. A little more complicated than that, but to keep it simple explanation here, on a particular day, at a particular block, BitShares 1.0 started running, and people who owned the ProtoShares suddenly found that in the BitShares chain they owned the exact same number of BitShares. And then we went on and did that again when the time came to go from 1.0 to 2.0, because it was a pitchfork, throw out all the old code, start a new chain running, and then give everybody on the new chain the same exact distribution as on the old chain. And then, by agreement of the community at that time, we turned off the old chain. If people had wanted to, they could have kept that old chain running, and there would have been two BitShares 1.0 and 2.0 in existence. And then there would have been the competition of people saying, well, let's trade. I want some of the new ones, or I want to keep the old one. And the two would have sought their new value, kind of like the fork on August 1st between Bitcoin Cash and Bitcoin. They each sought their own relative value based on a lot of different factors. So if you keep both chains, they'll sort of split the value, but then they may grow to a net bigger value added together. So that's share drop theory or airdrop theory, depending upon whether you want to use the word share or not. Nowadays, we don't use the word shares because that causes weak-minded people to think that it's a security. And fortunately, the government does say that, no, it doesn't matter what you call it, it's how it works underneath that determines whether something's a security. But there are certain exchanges that say, hey, you have shares in your name, you must be a security. Yeah. When I answer that question, I say, we're a blockchain that has the ability to do hundreds of coins, and some of them can be fully legal securities. So, yeah, there's tons of shares on BitShares. That doesn't mean BitShares itself is a security. It means it's a platform on which you can introduce fully legal securities. There, nanner.
Gerald Salente's long lost brother here. I love it. I love it. Okay, so that's what they were actually talking about when he had asked, Rico Steam had said, what about using the same way as Everpedia and airdrop to EOS token holders regarding a Steam alternative? And he was referring to Ned is really sour that Dan is doing a Steam alternative. So,
oh, I can understand that, but he brought it on himself. There, I'll just say it. If I've seen Ned downvote people, Michael Taggart wanted to do a training package, and he introduced it on there. He was all excited about it. He had this wonderful training package where he would sell things and teach you how to do Steemit, everything you needed to know. Now, a CEO that is thinking ahead encourages that type of third parties to bring their products into the thing. Instead, he used his massive willpower and even the power of the company's shares to downvote Michael to invisibility. That kind of behavior has happened over and over again. That destroys your system, and that makes people want to build something that seems fairer to them. If you act like that, you bring on that kind of karma.
It's Blue Rock Talk with Connie Willis. Connie Willis here, Crypto Connie, and Stan Larimer, the godfather of BitShares. Commenting back on what they were asking about with the SEC last night, a couple more little comments just so you'll know where everybody's at here is apparently the SEC is pro-crypto, according to all reports, which is nice to hear, except they jumped on Jared, right? FYI, the SEC was quite positive toward cryptos. SEC Chairman Clayton appears to be in our corner, and the Giancarlo dude was real into it too, I guess. But it looks like that was a very good thing. Looks like it was a good thing. Okay, that's really good.
Well, one of the things that I want to make sure is I don't paint things with too broad a brush. I think there are good people, the majority of good people in these three-letter agencies, okay? But because they operate in the shadows with certain degrees of independent power, there are little bad apples in there that want to flex their muscles. It's up to these agencies to seek out people that are abusing power and stomp that out before their agency's reputation is damaged irreparably. But yeah, I would welcome the SEC to encourage crypto. I don't think it's a good idea to keep having one agency taking over and regulating its competition. I just don't think that's a good idea. And it's not clear to me that someone couldn't say, yeah, I like crypto, but only crypto that we control.
Right.
So it's good to say crypto's good, but the question is that what is the essence of cryptodom? It's not the blockchain. It's the idea of decentralization and freedom. Okay, so you can say, I like blockchains as long as I control them and have all the nodes, and you have to do an expensive filing fee in order to even try to innovate anything, or I will throw you into jail for 5 years for not describing what you're going to do well enough to suit me, jaywalking. So, I encourage a good, honest, fair, and compassionate regulator. And we'll have to see what the true nature is. But I know trickling out the bottom is abuse and suppression. And let's see if the guys at the top can get it under control.
Well, they're saying that the dudes at the top do like the crypto. They're not fond of the ICOs.
Yeah. Well, there are lots of abuses in ICOs, too. A lot of people that are really giving us a bad name by selling coins and not delivering, not having any intention of delivering in some cases. And there does need to be some mechanism to root that out. But we do already have anti-fraud laws. So if somebody does that and commits fraud, there's a way to take care of that without draconian regulations. And I'd like to see them move into something a little more fair and compassionate.
Well, I'm going to do one more more question here. I love these answers. These are great. And you know what, with me, because I'll edit some things later, I get to hear it all over again and really take it in. And I do, because, I'm kind of thinking of a couple things here along the way. There's one last question we'll ask. It's from Dolphin Oatmeal. Can you discuss the commonalities between crypto and Puerto Rico concerning tax breaks and rebuilding of Puerto Rico?
Ooh, is that ever? You want me to fit that all in
in 30 seconds? Yeah.
30 seconds.
I got a little mop head over here coming up to me again.
Americans are, as far as I know, the only people who, no matter where they go in the world, the government tracks them down and taxes them. Okay, and so even if I'm living in France and making money over there and not consuming any resources from America, I'm expected to pay taxes back to the motherland because they own my body from cradle to grave. Except for this one beautiful place called Puerto Rico, where they have special exemptions in their tax laws for Americans. It's the one place Americans can go and get tax rates that are like down around 5% on their income tax. So if you are living in Puerto Rico and you are doing a business that is internet-wide, like cryptocurrencies, the tax laws are structured so that you have very minimal tax implications. So that's a wonderful place, and there are people actually thinking about creating crypto city in Puerto Rico. If that happened, then the stimulus to the economy of that place could be huge in terms of employment, new opportunities, and so on. And it could be a rebirth for Puerto Rico, and all because it has forward-thinking, fair tax laws, things that encourage the industry to grow instead of things that try to regulate it out of existence. So I'm watching that very closely. I might move to Puerto Rico myself.
All right. Yeah, it's supposed to be a beautiful area. I don't know. I've heard both, that there's some bad and some good, and I don't know. I don't know where I'd go.
Economic opportunity, tends to make everything get better, right? When people are desperate, they can exhibit bad behavior. So let's do things to boost Puerto Rico. It could become the jewel of the Caribbean with crypto technology there.
I like that idea. I think that's cool. The only thing I don't like is I might have like a vacation home there. But other than that, it's, those hurricanes, they just, you're right in the pathway of the hurricanes, right? Yeah.
You want to build a house that can stand a Category 6.
Yeah, they have those. That's about what went through. And nothing bad about that. I just, I've lived in the hurricane areas, and so when I look down in the map and you see the little bitty tiny little islands like that, you're like, oh my gosh, how did you all just survive that? Because we got a piece of it and it just tore us up. So how, because they just go right over those things. Oh my gosh. But that's great to hear that.
Barbuda, I think, had all life wiped off of it, mean, there were survivors, but I don't think it's a livable place right now. And so that's a real bad thing.
Right. Well, it's another edition of Blue Rock Talk with Connie Willis, along with the godfather of BitShares, Stan Larimer. Anything you want to say before you go?
Nope. Thank you, CryptoConnie. This has been a great session and a lot of good questions.
Yeah, a lot of people saying good things here at the end, saying great job. Love it so much when Stan is on. This is good. So I really appreciate all you Blue Rockers out there as well. If you haven't hit that like button, be sure and hit that like button before you go. There's a lot of links down below, and I will add by tomorrow the Trial of the Century article. I have it in the other ones. I might have it in this one, but if not, I'm going to make sure I put that in there because that's what he was talking about as well. So I'll make sure. I think it might even be in there. If not, I'll put that in there. But that's where all the links are, everybody. And next time I'll be on Coast March 3rd, March 24th, and we will definitely have Stan back on before then. Stan, congratulations on your Vegas trip. And, as soon as you can tell us the name and everything that's going on, we're looking forward to that. That's really cool. And when will the Quint come out? When will we see the Quint?
It'll be ramping up, more and more available over the next few months.
Man, I can't wait. All right. So, thank you, Stan.
Roger.
the salute. And thank you, Blue Rockers. We'll be back with more here on Blue Rock Talk. Thanks, everybody, for being here with us. And we'll be back with more on Blue Rock Talk. I didn't realize my machine's got to kick in here, so hold on. Don't go away, Stan. One more thing. Bigfoot Friday on Friday. I'm hoping to have something special for you. That's all I can say. If it doesn't work out, we'll do it on another day. But again, more to come on Blue Rock Talk with Connie Willis.